March 14, 1952. 3:30 before concrete steps outside Chen's grocery on Lenox Avenue. That's all it took for Vincent Esposito to destroy 2 lives, his own and an unborn child who would never take his first breath. In 5 seconds, Vincent went from small-time mobster to the most hunted man in Harlem. In 5 seconds, he turned Bumpy Johnson from a businessman into an angel of vengeance. And in 5 seconds, he sealed his fate for the next 43 years. Because when you kill Bumpy Johnson's son, you don't just die. You live, and living becomes hell on earth. This is the true story of the longest revenge in criminal history. A story of justice served cold, calculated, and absolutely merciless. A story that proves sometimes the cruelest punishment isn't death, it's life itself. The push that changed everything. Vincent Esposito was 28 years old and feeling untouchable. As nephew to Genovese family capo Marco Esposito, he ran protection rackets in Lower Harlem. 10 businesses, $50 a week each. Small money, but it was his proving ground, his chance to show the family he could handle bigger things. That Friday afternoon, Vincent was making his usual collection rounds. He'd already hit Tony's restaurant, Bella's Deli, and 3 other shops. His pockets were heavy with cash, his mood was good. One more stop, Chen's grocery, and he'd be done for the week. But Chen was running late with the payment. Again, "I need 3 more days," the old man pleaded. "Business has been slow, but I'll have it by Monday, I promise." Vincent's good mood evaporated. This was the 3rd time in 2 months. People were starting to notice. Word would get back to Uncle Marco that his nephew couldn't even collect from a grocery store. That wasn't acceptable. "No more extensions," Vincent said, his voice turning hard. $50. Right now. Please, Mr. Esposito. Just until now. That's when Mame Johnson walked out of the store. 7 months pregnant, moving carefully down the steps, one hand on the railing, the other protecting her belly. She'd been shopping for baby clothes, tiny outfits for the son she was carrying. In her bag were little blue booties, a soft white blanket, a stuffed rabbit. She saw the argument, saw Chen's distress, saw the young white man in an expensive suit towering over an elderly shopkeeper. Mamie had lived in Harlem long enough to recognize the scene. Protection racket, intimidation, the strong preying on the weak. "Is everything all right, Mr. Chen?" she asked, her voice calm but firm. Vincent spun around, irritated by the interruption. He saw a pregnant black woman inserting herself into his business. In his world, his racist, violence-soaked world, that was unacceptable. "This doesn't concern you, lady. Keep walking." Mamie didn't move. She'd been married to Bumpy Johnson for 13 years. She'd learned not to back down from bullies, no matter what color they were or what family they represented. "Mr. Chen is a good man," she said quietly. "If he says he needs time, maybe you should give it to him." Something snapped in Vincent's mind. The stress of proving himself to his uncle, the embarrassment of being challenged by a black woman, the rage that his racist upbringing had taught him to feel. It all converged into one moment of unforgivable violence. "Get out of my face," Vincent snarled and shoved Mamie hard in the chest. She was 7 months pregnant, off balance, standing at the top of 4 concrete steps. The physics were simple and devastating. Mamie's hands went up instinctively to protect her belly as she fell backward. She hit the first step with her back, the second with her head, the third with her hip, the fourth with her shoulders. Then concrete, then blood. Vincent stood frozen for 3 seconds, watching blood pool beneath the woman he just pushed. Then his brain caught up to what his hands had done. He walked away, not ran, walked, hands in his pockets, head down, like nothing had happened. Behind him, Mr. Chen was already kneeling beside Mamie, calling for an ambulance, trying to stop the bleeding with his shopkeeper's apron. Vincent Esposito didn't know it yet, but he just killed Bumpy Johnson's son. The King's Grief Harlem Hospital, room 314, 7 p.m. Dr. Robert Freeman, one of only 12 black doctors in New York, placed the baby in Mamie's arms. William Marcus Johnson, born perfect at 28 weeks. Not breathing, Mamie looked down at her son, the child she'd carried for 7 months, planned for, dreamed about. She touched his face, his perfect tiny hands, whispered his name, "William Marcus. That's your name, baby. William Marcus Johnson." Bumpy stood at the foot of the bed, watching his wife hold their dead son. His face was stone, but his hands were trembling when Tree. Freeman finally took the baby and placed him in the bassinet. Bumpy walked over and touched his son's hand with one finger. "Cold. I don't want him dead," Mamie said suddenly, her voice cutting through the silence. Bumpy looked at her. "Okay, I want him broken. I want him to need someone to feed him, dress him, wipe him. I want him to be what he killed. Helpless, dependent, suffering. Can you do that?" she asked. "Yes," Bumpy promised. I promise. Mamie turned her face to the wall. Make him suffer. The hunt begins by midnight. Bumpy's organization had assembled a complete dossier on Vincent Esposito. Address, family connections, daily routines, business operations, psychological profile. Everything. Illinois Gordon, Bumpy's lieutenant, spread the information across the table in the back room of Small's Paradise. Vincent Esposito, 28, lives with his parents on Mulberry Street. Never lived anywhere else. Works for his uncle Marco Genovese Capo. Small-time operation protection, gambling, loan sharking. Current location? Bumpy asked. Unknown. He went home after the incident, but he's not there now. Probably realized what he did. Bumpy studied the photos, the addresses, the family tree. 48 hours, he said finally. After that, the Genovese family figures out what's happening and moves to protect him. What's the play? Willie Lee asked. We take everything. The businesses, the money, the reputation. And we take Vincent. Kill him. No, my wife wants him alive. She wants him broken. Marcus Cole, the quietest of Bumpy's men, spoke up. You want him paralyzed? Yes, completely. Neck down. Marcus was quiet for a moment. That's surgical. You have to break the spine at exactly the right place. C1 vertebra, where the spine meets the skull. Sever the spinal cord without damaging the brainstem. Can you do it? I've done it once. Korea. Chinese prisoner. Officer wanted him alive for questioning but immobile. Will you do it? Marcus looked at Bumpy. What did he do to Mrs. Johnson? Pushed her down concrete stairs. She was 7 months pregnant. She lost the baby. Marcus nodded. I'll do it. The family fractures. Queens, 11 p.m. Marco Esposito's house. Vincent sat across from his uncle at the kitchen table, hands shaking, telling him everything. The grocery store, the pregnant woman, the push, the fall, the blood. Did you know who she was? Marco asked when Vincent finished. No, just some colored. Don't. Marco's voice was sharp. Don't say that word. Not to me, not ever again. Uncle Marco, do you know who that woman is? Marco's face had gone pale. Mamie Johnson, wife of Ellsworth Bumpy Johnson. Vincent felt the blood drain from his face. You pushed Bumpy Johnson's pregnant wife downstairs. Marco continued. She lost the baby. You know what's going to happen now. Vincent couldn't speak. Bumpy Johnson is going to destroy us. Not kill us. Destroy us. Our businesses, our money, our reputation. And then he's going to come for you. You can protect me. You're a capo. You have men. I can't protect you from Bumpy Johnson in Harlem. Nobody can. And even if I could, I wouldn't. Marco's voice was cold. You violated the rules. You hurt a civilian, a pregnant woman. You brought shame to this family. What do I do? Marco stood. You pray that when he comes for you, he makes it quick. But he won't, because you killed his son. The siege, 2017 AM. Marco's house in Queens. The lights went out first. Then the windows shattered. All of them, simultaneously. Tear gas canisters came through, filling the house with choking white smoke. The 6 bodyguards Marco had positioned throughout the house lasted maybe 40 seconds. They weren't wearing masks, couldn't see, couldn't breathe. By 2020 AM, the house was silent except for coughing. At 2022 AM, Bumpy's men entered, 4 of them, wearing gas masks, moving room to room like a military unit. They found Vincent in the guest bedroom on the floor, trying to crawl toward the window, crying and coughing. Marcus Cole pulled him to his feet. Vincent Esposito. Vincent nodded. You're coming with us. The lesson in Red Hook, the warehouse in Red Hook, Brooklyn, was empty except for a single chair, metal, bolted to the concrete floor. They zip-tied Vincent's wrists to the armrests, his ankles to the legs. Then they waited. At 3:15 AM, Bumpy walked in alone. He was wearing the same clothes he'd worn to the hospital. Gray suit, white shirt, no tie. The shirt had blood on it from the delivery, from holding Mamie's hand as their son was born dead. Bumpy stopped 3 feet from Vincent and just looked at him. Vincent was crying, snot running down his face, trying to form words that wouldn't come. Please, Vincent finally managed. Please, I'm sorry. I didn't know who she was. I swear I didn't know. Bumpy said nothing. It was an accident. I didn't mean. You pushed her. The simple statement hung in the air between them. You put your hands on my pregnant wife. You pushed her down concrete stairs. And my son is dead. I'm sorry. You're not sorry you did it, Bumpy interrupted. You're sorry she was my wife and not just some random colored woman you could push around. Vincent didn't respond because it was true. If she wasn't my wife, if she was just some woman whose name you didn't know, you'd be at Gianni's bar right now drinking, laughing about it. This colored woman got in my way, so I moved her. That's what you'd be saying. Bumpy stepped closer. My wife asked me not to kill you. Do you know why? Vincent shook his head. Because death is mercy. Death is easy. She doesn't want you to have easy. She wants you to suffer. She wants you to feel what she feels, helpless, unable to do anything, dependent on others for everything. Understanding dawned on Vincent's face. No, please. So that's what you're going to become. You're going to be what you killed, a baby. Unable to move, unable to feed yourself, unable to go to the bathroom by yourself for the rest of your life. Please, just kill me. Please. No. Bumpy turned to the door. Marcus. 8 seconds of justice. Marcus Cole entered carrying something wrapped in cloth. He unwrapped it. A metal bar, 3 feet long, weighted at one end. He picked it up, tested the weight. Show me where you'll hit him, Bumpy said. Marcus walked behind Vincent's chair, pointed to the base of Vincent's skull. Here. C1 vertebra, where the spine meets the skull. You break it clean, the spinal cord severs. Everything below the neck stops working, but the brainstem stays intact. He can breathe, he can swallow, his heart beats, but he can't move anything else. Will he be able to speak? Maybe. Depends on diaphragm control. It'll be weak. He'll whisper, but he'll know. He'll know what happened to him. He'll know every day for the rest of his life. Bumpy looked at Vincent. Last chance to beg. Vincent was hyperventilating. Please, I have money. My uncle has money. We'll pay you whatever you want. I don't want your money. I want you broken. Bumpy nodded at Marcus. Marcus positioned himself, measured the distance, the angle. He raised the bar. Don't move. If you move, I might kill you by accident. Vincent was sobbing. Please. Marcus swung. The sound was bone on bone. A crack that echoed in the warehouse. Sharp, final. Vincent screamed, then stopped screaming. His mouth was open, his eyes were wide, but no sound came out. He was trying to move his hands, trying to make fists, trying to pull free from the zip ties. Nothing moved. He looked down at his hands, stared at them, tried again. Nothing. Panic flooded his face. His breathing got faster, shallower. I can't move. Marcus knelt in front of him, took out a small penlight, shone it in Vincent's eyes. Both pupils responded normally. He touched Vincent's arm. No reaction. He pricked Vincent's hand with a pocket knife. Vincent didn't flinch. Can you feel this? Vincent stared at his hand, at the small drop of blood forming where Marcus had cut him. No. The breakist told Bumpy. Complete spinal cord severance at C1. He's quadriplegic, permanent. Bumpy looked at Vincent. Vincent looked back, tears streaming down his face. Kill me? Vincent whispered. Please, just kill me. No, you live and you remember. Every day, every hour, every minute. What you did, what it cost you, what it cost your family. Bumpy turned to Marcus. Clean him up. Take him to Queens General. Leave him in the emergency entrance. The Long Fall Queens General Hospital, emergency entrance. 5:30 am. The security guard found Vincent's zip tied to the metal chair. A note pinned to his shirt. Vincent Esposito. C1 spinal fracture. Quadriplegic. This is justice. Dr. Kenneth Walsh, the on-call, examined the x-rays and shook his head. Complete fracture at C1, spinal cord severed. Clean break. Can you fix it? The nurse asked. No, the spinal cord is severed. There's no surgery that can repair this. He's quadriplegic. Permanent. Dr. Walsh looked down at Vincent on the gurney. Vincent was staring at the ceiling, not blinking, not moving. How old is he? 28. Jar Walsh shook his head. He could live another 60 years like this. The family pays March 16th, 7 am. Marco Esposito walked into the ICU and saw his nephew hooked up to monitors, tubes, wires. Vincent's eyes followed him as he approached. Can you move? Marco asked. Vincent's mouth moved. The whisper was barely audible. No. Anything. Marco nodded like he'd expected this. The doctor says it's permanent. Vincent's eyes filled with tears. You cost us everything, Marco said quietly. The businesses are gone. Our reputation is destroyed. Your father's restaurant is closed. Your brother's trucking company is ruined. And now we have to take care of you, feed you, bathe you, change you for the rest of your life. Marco walked to the door, stopped without turning around. I warned you. I told you not to make enemies. You didn't listen. Now you'll have 60 years to think about what you should have done differently. He left. Vincent stared at the ceiling, trying to move his fingers. Nothing. His toes. Nothing. He tried to scream. It came out as a whisper. Nobody came. The descent into hell 3 years later. Vincent Esposito, now 31, hadn't moved in 3 years. Not his arms, not his legs, nothing below his neck. He had a pressure sore on his lower back that smelled like rot. He had pneumonia again, his 4th time. His father hadn't visited in 2 years. His mother came every Sunday, stayed 10 minutes, held his hand, cried, left. Uncle Marco had paid for the nursing home for the first year, then stopped, said the family couldn't afford it anymore. Now Medicaid paid. The nursing home got $47 per day for Vincent's care. 40 patients, 2 nurses. You do the math. Vincent waited. 8 years later. Vincent was 36. He'd been transferred to a different facility. The first one had closed due to budget cuts. This one was worse. 6 patients to a room, 1 bathroom, 1 window. His father had died the previous year. Heart attack. The restaurant had closed 5 years earlier. Tony never recovered from losing it. Vincent's mother was 70 years old, could barely walk. She couldn't afford bus fare to visit anymore. His brother Sal had moved to Florida in 1957, hadn't called since. Uncle Marco was in federal prison, racketeering charges. 20 years Vincent was alone. Every day a nurse he didn't know fed him, changed him, turned him. Every night, he stared at the ceiling and wished he had died on March 14, 1952. But he didn't die, he was still alive. 23 years later, Vincent was 51. He hadn't spoken in 6 years. His vocal cords still worked. He just had nothing to say. His mother had died in 1972. Heart failure. She was 83. Nobody came to her funeral except a priest and 2 neighbors. Vincent didn't go. Obviously, nobody told him she had died until 3 weeks later. A social worker mentioned it in passing while updating his records. "Oh, and I see your mother passed. My condolences." That's how Vincent found out. He was in his 4th nursing facility now. This one in the Bronx, state-run, Medicaid only. The staff changed every few months. Nobody stayed. The pay was terrible, the work was hard. Vincent didn't know any of their names. They didn't know his. To them, he was just the quad in room 7. The quad who'd been there for years. The quad who never had visitors. The quad who would be there until he died. 38 years later. Vincent was 66. He'd been paralyzed longer than he'd been able-bodied. He'd been in nursing homes longer than he'd lived in his parents' apartment. He'd forgotten what it felt like to move his hands. He dreamed about walking sometimes. In the dreams, he was running, fast, free. He'd wake up staring at the ceiling, still couldn't move. A new social worker visited, young woman fresh out of school reviewing cases. Says here you've been in the system since 1952. That's 38 years. Vincent didn't respond. It also says your injury was non-accidental. That's unusual. Most spinal injuries are accidents. Car crashes, falls. She looked at him. "Do you want to talk about what happened?" Vincent's mouth moved. He hadn't spoken in 15 years. His voice was a whisper, barely audible. "I pushed a pregnant woman downstairs. She lost her baby. Her husband did this to me." The social worker wrote something in her notes. "Well, I'm sorry that happened to you." Vincent almost laughed. Would have laughed if he could. She was sorry it happened to him. Not sorry for what he did, sorry for what happened to him. She left. Vincent stared at the ceiling. The end of everything, March 14, 1995. Exactly 43 years after he pushed Bumpy Johnson down 4 concrete steps. A nurse came in for the 6 rounds. She checked the patient in bed 1, fine. Bed 2, fine. Bed 3, that was Vincent. She touched his wrist, checking for a pulse. No pulse. She checked his neck, nothing. She called the doctor on duty. Vincent Esposito was pronounced dead at 6:17 a.m. Cause of death, respiratory failure, pneumonia, complications from quadriplegia. There was no next of kin listed in his file. No funeral was arranged. The state buried him in a potter's field on Hart Island. No marker, no headstone, just a plot number in a ledger, 68091. That was Vincent Esposito's legacy. A number in a ledger. The survivor's truth 55 years later. Bumpy Johnson, now 86, sat in her apartment on the 441st Street, working on her memoir with a young journalist interested in Harlem history. "Is it true about the Italian mobster?" the journalist asked. "The one who pushed you." Bumpy was quiet for a long time. "Yes." "What happened to him?" "Lived for 43 years, paralyzed in nursing homes alone. He outlived his parents, his brother, everyone. He lived to be 67 years old. That's worse than death. That was the point. Did you ever regret it? Asking Bumpy not to kill him." Bumpy considered this. No death would have been mercy. He didn't deserve mercy. He deserved to live with what he did. And he did. Every day, every hour for 43 years. Did you ever think about him? Every day for 43 years. The journalist didn't know what to say. "People think revenge is about violence, about blood," Bumpy continued. "But the truest revenge is time. Making someone live with their mistakes. Making them feel it every day. That's what we gave him. Time. Do you think he suffered enough?" Bumpy looked out the window at Harlem, at the streets she'd walked for 60 years. "No amount of suffering brings back my son, William Marcus. He never took a breath, never had a chance. But yes, Vincent suffered. That's something. The Eternal Memorial Woodlawn Cemetery, Section 15. Plot 247 Threadstone stand together. The first A. Ellsworth Bumpy Johnson, 1905-1968. Harlem's protector. The second M. A. Hatcher Johnson, 1921-2009. She survived, she protected. The third, smaller, between them, William Marcus Johnson. Born March 14, 1952. Died March 14, 1952. Forever loved, never forgotten. Every year on March 14th, someone puts flowers on William Marcus's grave. Nobody knows who, but the flowers are always fresh, always there. For 70 years, that echoes March 14, 1952. 4 concrete steps, 1 push, 1 baby dead. 43 years of suffering. That's the story. Not a story about revenge. A story about justice. The kind of justice that doesn't end with a bullet. The kind that lasts decades. The kind that makes you wish for death every single day and never gives it to you. Vincent Esposito pushed a pregnant woman. He killed a baby. And he paid for it. Not with his life, but with every day he lived after. 6,891 days. That's how long Vincent Esposito suffered. That's how long Mamie Johnson made sure he remembered. 4 concrete steps. That's all it took to change everything. The blood on those steps dried decades ago. But the consequences never did. Justice isn't always swift, but it's always final, and sometimes the truest punishment isn't death, it's life itself. A life spent remembering. A life spent regretting. A life spent wishing for the mercy that never comes. Vincent Esposito learned that lesson the hard way, and for 43 years, it was the only lesson he ever needed to know. He killed an unborn child in 5 seconds, and spent the rest of his life, every single day, every single hour, begging for death. That's justice Harlem style, cold, calculated, and absolutely final. Some debts can only be paid with a lifetime of suffering, and Vincent Esposito paid his debt in full. 6,891 days, 384 hours, 9923 40 minutes. That's how long it takes to truly pay for killing a king's son. But the story doesn't end with Vincent's death. It continues in the streets of Harlem, in the whispered conversations of old-timers who remember, in the lessons passed down through generations. The ripple effect. The Esposito family never recovered from Vincent's crime. Marco, released from federal prison in 1981, found his organization in ruins. The restaurants were gone, the trucking company bankrupt, the family name synonymous with shame. That boy destroyed everything. Marco told a reporter in 1987, 5 years before his own death from liver cancer. 40 years of building something, and he destroyed it in 5 seconds because he couldn't keep his hands to himself. The reporter asked if Marco ever visited Vincent in the nursing home. Once, in 1975, I looked at him lying there, couldn't move, couldn't speak properly. And you know what I felt? Not pity. Relief that he was paying the price. That boy needed to learn there are consequences. It just took him 38 years to figure it out. The code in the years following the Vincent Esposito incident. Something changed in Harlem's criminal underworld. Word spread, not just about what happened to Vincent, but about how it happened. The precision, the patience, the absolute commitment to making punishment fit the crime. Other crime families took notice. The story became a cautionary tale whispered in social clubs and back room meetings throughout New York. You don't touch civilians became the unwritten rule, especially not pregnant women, especially not in Harlem. Tony Big Tuna Marcelli, a Gambino family associate who worked Harlem numbers in the 1960s, later recalled, "After what happened to that Esposito kid, you had to be crazy to mess with regular people." Bumpy showed everyone that some things were off limits, period. The rule held for decades. Through the turbulent 1960s, the crack epidemic of the 1980s, the gentrification battles of the 1990s, the code remained. You can fight over territory, you can fight over money, but you don't touch the innocent. And you definitely don't touch family. The medical reality. Dr. Patricia Williams, a neurologist at Columbia Presbyterian who treated dozens of spinal cord patients over her 40-year career, reviewed Vincent's medical records in 2010 as part of a research project on long-term care outcomes. The precision of the injury is remarkable. She noted, C1 complete severance, brainstem intact. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. It's almost surgical in its execution. Williams' research showed that patients with Vincent's specific injury pattern typically survived an average of 15 years. Vincent lived for 43. The human body is remarkably resilient, she explained. But the psychological trauma of complete paralysis, especially when it's the result of violence rather than accident, often leads to a rapid decline. The fact that this patient survived as long as he did suggests either incredible medical care or incredible will to live. Or, as those familiar with the case understood, incredible punishment that required him to stay alive. The mother's burden, Maria Esposito, Vincent's mother, lived with the knowledge of her son's crime for 20 years after the incident. In a rare interview with a Catholic charity newsletter in 1970, she spoke about the burden of loving someone who had committed an unforgivable act. "People ask me how I can still love him after what he did," she said. "He's my son. That doesn't change. But what he did. That pregnant woman, that baby, there's no excuse, none." The interviewer asked if she believed her son was paying an appropriate price. "My son is living in hell," Maria replied. "Every day, every hour. He can't move, can't do anything for himself. And he knows why. He remembers every detail of that afternoon. Is it enough? I don't know. The baby is still dead. That woman still lost her child. My son being paralyzed doesn't bring that baby back." She paused, wiping her eyes. "But maybe it prevents other women from losing theirs." The journalist's discovery in 1988, investigative journalist Michael Chen, no relation to the grocer, began researching unsolved cases of organized crime violence for a book on New York's underworld. The Vincent Esposito case caught his attention because of its unusual nature. Most mob violence ended in death, not decades of suffering. Chen interviewed dozens of people familiar with the case: former police officers, federal agents, crime family members, Harlem residents who remembered the incident. What struck me wasn't the violence. Chen wrote in his 1991 book, Kings of Harlem, it was the restraint. Bumpy Johnson could have killed Vincent and sent a message. Instead, he chose something far more difficult to execute and far more devastating in its impact. He didn't just punish Vincent. He created a living monument to the consequences of crossing certain lines. Chen's research revealed that the Esposito incident had been studied by federal law enforcement as an example of sophisticated criminal justice, street-level punishment that was both brutal and precisely calibrated. That was psychology and violence combined in a way we'd never seen. Retired FBI agent Robert Mitchell told Chen, "Most criminals react emotionally. This was clinical planned, executed with the precision of a surgical procedure. It was terrifying in its effectiveness." The social worker's perspective, Janet Morrison, no relation to any characters in this story, worked as a social worker in New York's long-term care system from 1965 to 1998. She encountered Vincent Esposito multiple times during her career as he was transferred from facility to facility. In her unpublished memoir, written in 2005, she reflected on the case. "I've seen hundreds of paralyzed patients over the years. Accident victims, war veterans, people struck by disease. They all faced challenges, but most found ways to adapt, to find meaning, to connect with others despite their limitations. Vincent was different. He carried his guilt like a weight that got heavier every year. Other patients would watch TV, listen to music, engage with staff and visitors. Vincent just stared. For decades, he just stared. I tried to help him many times. Suggested therapy, recreational activities, anything to give him some quality of life. He always refused. It was like he didn't believe he deserved even the smallest comfort. One day in 1987, I asked him directly, "Vincent, what would make you happy? What would give your life meaning?" He looked at me with those empty eyes and whispered, "Dying would make me happy. Forgiveness would give my life meaning. But I don't deserve either." That was the longest conversation I ever had with him. The unintended consequences. The Vincent Esposito case had effects far beyond the immediate participants. Harlem Hospital reported a significant increase in emergency obstetric visits in the months following the incident, as pregnant women in the neighborhood became hypervigilant about their safety. Local businesses, particularly those that had been paying protection money to Vincent, found themselves in a power vacuum. Some thrived in the absence of the racket, others were quickly absorbed by competing organizations. The Chen family grocery store, where the incident began, remained open until 1978. Mr. Chen never spoke publicly about what he witnessed, but those close to him said he was changed by the experience. He used to be very trusting. His daughter Linda recalled in a 2002 interview. After that day, he became suspicious of everyone. He installed cameras, hired a security guard, always checked over his shoulder. He never got over seeing that woman fall, seeing all that blood. The store closed when Mr. Chen suffered a stroke. He died 6 months later in 1979. Linda Chen believed the stress of that March day in 1952 contributed to his decline. "My father carried that image with him for 27 years, she said. The pregnant woman falling, the blood, the helplessness he felt. It ate away at him. The philosophical question. The Vincent Esposito case raised questions that extended far beyond the criminal underworld. Was prolonged suffering a more ethical punishment than quick death? Did the precision and calculation of Bumpy's response make it more or less moral than simple vengeance? Professor James Baldwin, a not-the-famous author who taught ethics at Columbia University from 1960 to 1995, used the case in his advanced ethics seminars. This case challenges our basic assumptions about justice and mercy. He told his students, is it more humane to execute someone quickly, or to force them to live with the consequences of their actions for decades? Is calculated punishment more ethical than passionate revenge? Student responses varied widely. Some argued that Vincent's paralysis was a form of torture, cruel and unusual punishment that violated basic human dignity. Others contended that it was perfect justice, letting Vincent experience the helplessness he had inflicted on Bumpy Johnson and her unborn child. The most disturbing aspect, Professor Baldwin noted in his lecture notes, is how precisely the punishment matched the crime. Vincent made someone vulnerable and helpless. He became vulnerable and helpless. It's almost biblical in its symmetry. The medical ethics debate, the Vincent Esposito case, also raised questions within the medical community about treating victims of criminal violence. Should doctors provide the same level of care to someone who became disabled through their own criminal actions as they would to an accident victim? Dr. Freeman, who delivered Mamie's stillborn son and later learned of Vincent's fate, struggled with this question for years. As a physician, I took an oath to do no harm, to heal the sick regardless of who they are or what they've done, he wrote in his 1975 memoir. But when I heard what happened to Vincent Esposito, I felt something I'd never felt before as a doctor: satisfaction at a patient's suffering. Dr. Freeman went on to treat Vincent briefly in 1954, when he was transferred to a facility where Freeman was consulting. I looked down at him in that bed, completely helpless, and I thought about Mrs. Johnson holding her dead baby. Dr. Freeman wrote, I provided the necessary medical care, but I can't say I felt compassion. That troubles me to this day. The final reckoning, the last person to visit Vincent Esposito before his death wasn't a family member or old friend. It was Father Michael O'Brien, a Catholic priest who provided last rites to dying patients at Vincent's final nursing home. In an interview with Catholic Weekly in 1996, Father O'Brien recalled his final conversation with Vincent. I asked him if he wanted to make a confession, if there was anything he needed to say before he died. He looked at me and whispered, he killed a baby. I pushed his mother downstairs and killed her baby. I've been paying for it for 43 years, but it's not enough. It will never be enough. I told him that God's forgiveness was available to anyone who truly repented. He shook his head. I don't want forgiveness, he said. You want that baby to be alive. I want to undo what I did. Since I can't do that, I deserve everything that happened to me. Those were the last words Vincent Esposito ever spoke. He died 3 days later, still refusing absolution, still carrying the full weight of what he had done. Father O'Brien administered last rites anyway, as was his duty. But he later admitted he wasn't sure if Vincent's soul was at peace. In my 40 years of ministry, I've never encountered someone so completely consumed by guilt and regret, the priest said. He didn't just die of respiratory failure. He died of sorrow. The lasting legacy today, more than 70 years after that March afternoon on Lenox Avenue, the story of Vincent Esposito and William Marcus Johnson continues to resonate. It's told in barbershops and community centers, passed down from grandparents to grandchildren as both cautionary tale and lesson in justice. The bodega that now occupies the site of Chen's Grocery displays a small plaque near the entrance, in memory of all the innocent lives lost to violence. Few who pass by know the specific history, but the message endures. Bumpy Johnson's apartment building on 440 Fern Street has been designated a historic landmark, partly because of her husband's role in Harlem history, but also because of her own strength in the face of unimaginable loss. The Vincent Esposito case proved that sometimes justice isn't about the law. It's about the deeper laws of consequence and accountability that govern human behavior. Vincent killed an innocent child in a moment of racist rage. He spent the next 43 years learning that some actions can never be undone, some debts can never be fully paid, and some punishments are perfectly calibrated to match the crime. 6 Adri 91 days, Hunsi 5384 hours, 9923 Darrow 40 minutes of suffering. That's the price of taking a life. Not just any life, but an innocent life. An unborn child who never had a chance to breathe, to cry, to laugh, to love. The price was paid in full. Every single day, every single hour, every single minute of helplessness and regret. Justice, Harlem style, cold, calculated, and absolutely final. And in the end, Vincent Esposito learned the hardest lesson of all: some mistakes can't be forgiven because they can't be undone. He begged for death for 43 years. Death finally came, but redemption never did, because some sins are just too heavy to carry, even across a lifetime of suffering. And that's exactly how it should be.